When the numbers don't add up, navigating career success in an uneven landscape. 6 months ago, I had the extraordinary privilege of sitting down with Trelaya Shorter, a brilliant economic analyst whose groundbreaking work has transformed how we understand employment disparities in America. If data had a heartbeat, Trelaya would be its cardiologist, diagnosing the arrhythmias in our economic systems with precision and compassion that few can match. Her research doesn't just illuminate problems, it creates pathways to solutions that are changing lives across the country, especially for Black women navigating complex career landscapes. Her dedication to economic justice and data driven advocacy has made her one of the most important voices in employment equity today, and I'm still processing the profound insights she shared. What struck me most about our conversation wasn't just the stark statistics she shared, though those were eye opening enough. It was the way she framed these numbers not as abstract data points, but as the lived realities of millions of women making decisions every day that shape their futures. Have you ever had that moment when you're staring at your bank account, wondering why it doesn't reflect all the hustle you've been putting in? That disconnect between effort and outcome that makes you question if you're doing something wrong? That feeling of, I did everything right, so why isn't this working? I remember sitting across from Trelai as she laid out the employment data from April 2025 and feeling that same disconnect, but on a massive systemic scale. Here's the reality that stopped me cold. In a single month, just 30 days, Black women lost 106,000 jobs. Not because they weren't qualified, not because they weren't working hard, not because they made poor decisions. They lost these jobs during a period when the economy actually added 175,000 positions. Let that sink in for a moment. The national job market was growing, expanding, creating opportunity, just not for Black women. Their unemployment rate jumped from 5.1% to 6.1% in that single month. When I first heard these numbers from Trelaya, I had that uncomfortable feeling you get when something doesn't add up. Like when the restaurant bill seems too high, but you can't quite figure out where the error is. Except this wasn't about an overcharged appetizer. This was about the economic survival of an entire demographic. The math is mathing, as the kids say, but it's mathing in a way that reveals something profoundly broken in our systems. Because here's what else Trelaya shared. While Black women were facing this employment crisis, white women maintained a steady 3.3% unemployment rate. Hispanic women remained at 4.6%. The disparity wasn't subtle, it was glaring. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds like a political speech, not a TED talk. But this isn't about politics, it's about physics. It's about the invisible forces that accelerate or decelerate our careers, regardless of our individual momentum. Imagine you're running a race. You've trained hard, you've got the right shoes, you've visualized the finish line, you're doing everything right. But what if some runners face a headwind that others don't? What if some lanes have hurdles while others are clear? What if the track itself is tilted? That's not politics, that's physics. And understanding these forces isn't about assigning blame, it's about navigating reality. During our interview, Trelaya explained that economists had identified two key factors behind this employment disparity. First, reductions in federal employment, historically a stable employer for Black women. Second, rollbacks of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in major industries. The federal government has long been a pathway to middle class stability for Black women. When those jobs disappear, the impact isn't evenly distributed across demographics. It's like removing a crucial support beam from a structure. The entire building doesn't collapse, but certain sections become dangerously unstable. Similarly, as companies retreated from their diversity commitments, Black women often found themselves first on the chopping block, not because of performance issues, but because the very initiatives designed to create equitable workplaces were being dismantled. Again, not politics, physics, external forces creating real world impacts. But here's where our conversation took a turn from potentially depressing to genuinely empowering. Trelaya emphasized that understanding these realities doesn't mean surrendering to them. It means navigating with clearer vision. As she put it, when you know the currents, you can chart a better course. This is where the real power lies, not in pretending the playing field is level when it isn't, but in developing strategies that acknowledge the actual landscape we're traversing. So, what does this mean for you? Whether you're a Black woman facing these specific challenges or anyone navigating a career path with its own unique obstacles, it means we need a new framework for thinking about success and decision making, one that balances personal agency with systemic awareness. Trelaya shared an insight that has stuck with me. The myth of pure meritocracy isn't just inaccurate, it's actively harmful. It causes people to internalize structural failures as personal ones. Let me repeat that. It causes people to internalize structural failures as personal ones. How many of us have blamed ourselves for not advancing quickly enough, not earning enough, not achieving enough, without considering the broader context in which our careers exist? This isn't about making excuses, it's about making accurate assessments. It's about calibrating our expectations and strategies to match the actual environment we're operating in. Think about it like weather forecasting. If you're planning an outdoor event, you check the forecast. If there's a 70% chance of rain, you don't just hope for sunshine. You make contingency plans. You bring umbrellas. You secure a tent. You adapt. That's not being negative, that's being strategic. Similarly, understanding employment trends and disparities isn't about dampening ambition, it's about directing it more effectively. During our conversation, Trelaya outlined several approaches that acknowledge both personal agency and systemic realities. First, research industries and companies more thoroughly. Some sectors have better track records than others when it comes to equitable advancement. Some companies have cultures that actively support the success of Black women and other underrepresented groups. This isn't about limiting options, it's about making informed choices. Second, build stronger support networks. Mentorship and sponsorship become even more crucial when navigating challenging landscapes. Finding guides who understand both your potential and the terrain can make all the difference. Third, advocate for workplace equity while pursuing individual success. These aren't mutually exclusive goals, they're complementary. As Trelaya noted, the systems won't change if we all just try to beat them individually. Collective awareness leads to collective action. Fourth, develop contingency plans that acknowledge the potential for unexpected setbacks. This isn't pessimism, it's preparation. Having multiple paths forward ensures that a single roadblock doesn't end your journey. But perhaps most importantly, Trelea emphasized the need to redefine success itself. In a world that often measures achievement in narrow terms, salary, title, prestige, we have the power to create more holistic and personally meaningful metrics. Success isn't just about climbing a ladder, she said. It's about building a life that reflects your values and priorities. This perspective shift is revolutionary. It moves us from being passive recipients of external validation to active creators of our own fulfillment. And this is where the concept of the soft girl era becomes not just a trendy phrase, but a powerful philosophy. Being soft doesn't mean being weak, it means being flexible, adaptive, and attuned to both external realities and internal wisdom. It means recognizing that sometimes the strongest response to rigid systems isn't to become rigid ourselves, but to develop a supple resilience that can bend without breaking. As Trelaya put it, the oak tree that refuses to bend in the storm often breaks. The willow that sways survives to grow another day. This isn't about lowering expectations or ambitions. It's about channeling them more effectively. It's about recognizing that sometimes the direct path isn't available. So we create zigzag routes that still lead to our destinations. I want to be clear about something. Acknowledging systemic challenges doesn't mean accepting them as permanent or immutable. The same data that reveals disparities also creates accountability. The detailed tracking of these statistics by demographic groups has made these disparities impossible to ignore, forcing broader conversations and ultimately change. Awareness is the first step toward transformation, both personal and collective. So, where does this leave us? Not with resignation, but with revolution. Not with a white flag, but with a battle plan. I challenge each of you today to become both an architect and an activist in your own career journey. An architect who designs with full awareness of the landscape, and an activist who works to reshape that landscape for yourself and others. Start by examining the invisible forces shaping your own professional trajectory. What headwinds are you facing? What tailwinds are propelling others forward? This isn't about envy, it's about clarity. Then commit to strategic adaptation without surrendering your ambition. Like water facing an obstacle, don't stop flowing. Find new channels. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, share what you learn. When you discover a pathway, illuminate it for others. When you encounter a barrier, name it so others don't blame themselves for its existence. The most profound insight from my conversation with Trelaya wasn't in the statistics, though they were revealing. It was in the recognition that our greatest power lies at the intersection of personal resilience and collective action. So, as you navigate your own career path, remember this: the game may not always be fair, but that doesn't mean you can't play brilliantly. The path may have unexpected obstacles, but that doesn't mean you can't reach your destination. And sometimes the most powerful move isn't to push harder against immovable objects, but to flow around them like water, persistent, patient, and ultimately unstoppable. Because when enough drops of water flow in the same direction, even the most imposing landscapes are transformed. Thank you